Hello, I'm here today. I'm Donnie Pappas, and I'm here today with Aislinn
Kerchaert.
Kerchaert. And she will be a presenter this year at the 2024 Fairy and Human Relations Congress in Salem, Oregon, July 18th to the 22nd, in an old growth oak forest. Welcome, Aislinn.
Thank you, Donnie.
We're really honored to have you back, actually. Um, I do believe last year was your first year
It
on the
was.
land.
Mm-hmm.
And what an exceptional year you divinely showed up for, and what you brought with you, the Kontomble.
Yes. Yes, the Kontomble.
Kontomble,
hmm
and more. So I was wondering, I was hoping that you would just jump right in and tell our fairy folk friends exactly who you are and how you showed up here.
Okay. Well, thank you, Donnie. It's an absolute honor to be here speaking with you and yeah, sharing these words for the Fairy Congress, which, my partner and I came out to the Fairy Congress last year for the first time so that I could lead this workshop, which was, I think it was called Connecting with the Contomble. And we were both just blown away by the atmosphere that was created, the energy field that was generated by having so many open-hearted folk gather together in a place where there was relationship with the nature spirits, the wee folk and the little people being actively, consciously tended. Like that was just so cool to us because that's kind of what we're both all about. So for to answer your question, for my path and my journey, I am a Kontomble voice diviner. And this type of divination comes from the Dagra lineage, which was brought to the West by Elder Malidoma Somé. And the Kontomble are the little people from the Dagra tribe of West Africa. So as you know, there's little people all over the world by many different names. There's many different nations of little people. And I always like to say that the Kontomble are like the MCs at the party. They kind of have the mic through the art of voice divination. That's what's going on is I'm literally giving them my voice and then they speak through my voice in their ancient mother tongue. And then I translate that into English. And those translations are often brought through in the form of riddles or rhymes, messages about one's soul path and purpose. And so that we did not experience at the Fairy Congress 2023, but we will experience in the Thursday immersion of Fairy Congress 2024. So something to look forward to.
Very much so, very much so. That was a very powerful workshop and connection that you co-created in 2023, along with the Contemple and the humans
Yeah, it
and the land and our allies.
Yeah, it was a really beautiful one. Did you want to say anything about your experience during it?
Well, was there in a very specific way that was a little unexpected. Um, there were so many healers in that tent that I knew personally as healers, even though we're all healers and we come to experience things so we can generate a higher frequency or whatever, but it's all about connection. And I had this great experience where a lot of grief came up and I really felt the land, but I felt the connection. What happened was that it built from you to connecting us to each other
Mm,
with the Contemble, with the
mm,
land. And
thank you.
it just kind of did feel like a vortex until I was literally on the ground.
Wow.
And I had my hands in my face, and then I was next to Amba, who was actually doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was a few of us on the ground with our voices into the land doing our divination and healing by
Mm,
vibrationally. And it was got so wild um, to a certain degree, and that we were clearing grief. I'm sure of it. I can't wait to go back to the land. I know what happened after while we were on the land, but now it's been 365 days. So and we've been in communication with the land, but to actually put our feet back on the land will be wonderful to experience. And so, yeah, so we got into it and
Yeah.
we were not alone. And it was deep and rich and real.
Mm,
And in that place where the Fairy Congress is a very special place.
it is.
It is surrounded by agricultural land. It was a refuge for many people, many different kind of people throughout centuries. And we're learning more about its history. And to
Mm,
have the Kontomble and energy work that was accessed through your divination and whatever else happened with the people there, humans and otherwise, um, we shall find out. We
yeah.
do have another event happening on the land before we get there, so I will be checking in with them
Beautiful. Thank
too.
you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And then on Thursday, when we come in, you'll be our first event.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I appreciate you sharing about your experience in last year's workshop, which ended up becoming a grief ritual. That's what ended up happening.
Yeah,
And I think to most of our surprise that that's what the ancestors had planned and what unfolded through us following and surrendering to what was being presenced as each person in the group shared. And
yeah.
I feel like that really was in a way, and I think you almost were uh, I don't know if I like intuiting this, but it felt like it was in a way a preparation for whatever is meant to unfold this year with the Contomble. That's how I've been feeling it and looking at it, and that there was like this clearing that had to happen. And now this year we'll be in the same space with that same beautiful grandmother tree, and the Contomble will be able to actually speak to us and bring a lot more messages through. And so that's what we're going to be doing in this Thursday immersion. We'll have a combination of, group circle, intention sharing, combination of ritual and song, and then going into hearing from the Contomble in that divinatory space, which is really, it's a special thing because those messages that they bring through, they're kind of like these little seeds that might not make complete sense right away, but time release capsules, right? Seeds
Exactly.
that grow over time, and as they grow over time through our experience, that wisdom grows in us too. And that wisdom that they're always wanting to grow in us is the wisdom of, you know, how to be better humans, how to live in right relationship to the land, and also that wisdom of what does it mean to be in relationship to the little people and walk with them in a good way. So there's a lot of good things that they are always inviting us into as little people. And when the Contomble speak, as I said earlier, they might speak on behalf of the Kontomble nation, but they might also speak on behalf of the nations of little people that are inherent to that land. They may speak on behalf of nations of little people that are inherent to our own particular ancestries. They may speak on behalf of the voice of the tree. We never really know who's going to show up. The mountains. So they have a way of knowing what needs to be said, when and where. And I look forward to seeing what that will be this year.
Yes. So that does remind me of the circle last year because that's exactly how the whole thing started. The whole container was created. And immediately after your workshop, because you basically that was the last workshop almost. Anyway, after your workshop, before you even left, we were already talking about having you back.
Well,
You and the Contomble.
we are honored and delighted.
So I just wanted to let you know and little people know that we're listening too, because
Well,
we know there has to be part two
thank
to
you so
say,
much.
so to say. So you also were talking about whale songs.
Yes, yes. So the workshop that I'll be doing as a part of the normal Fairy Congress program this year,
Yeah.
I the name that the Kontomble gave me was Oceans of Devotion, with the Kontomble and the whales. And a big part of my journey with the Kontomble has unfolded alongside of swimming with the whales, swimming along with the whales. One of the first things that they told me when I first met them in a divination with another diviner was that I needed to swim with the whales so that I could remember. And that was many, many years ago. And since then, my connection with these whale relatives has only deepened through dream time, through real life experiences. You know, I live out here on the Oregon coast, right where the Columbia River meets the ocean. It's a very active portal, as you yourself have experienced before. And we get a lot of activity, and unfortunately, there's been many beachings of whales that have been happening in the past. Well, it's been happening for decades, but there's been, for me, a noticeable increase in the past couple years. And the Kontomble have called me to go visit these whales when they reach our shores, and to bring offerings to them, and to bring like a tending heart, to bring prayers to them. And through this process, they've been bringing different messages to me and different insights about, um, well, you could say their role in the evolution of humanity. And so this is something that I wanted to honor by creating some space for them at the Fairy Congress, because from my perspective, which really came from the teachings of the Kontomble, the whales and the little people are really good friends, and they have really similar purposes. The main difference being maybe size. Whales are very big, little people are very little. But then really what I was going to say is the biggest difference is that we still see whales with our eyes. They still swim in our oceans, whereas the little people maybe have been say like denigrated to the other world, and they of course can choose when they want to be seen by us, but those moments are rare and not as common as, say, seeing a whale. So there's something about you know, what a person feels when they see a whale, and what that does to their energy body and their system, and on a soul level what that ignites, and then like what would happen when we see a little person and connect with the little person. There's something to this, and that has to do with their ancient connections, that they come from you know, similar, you could say, yeah, similar spaces in the larger universe, in terms of like the positions that they hold, what their ancient souls have done to contribute to creating the body, consciousness, and soul of Mother Earth and of Mama Gaia. So there's something really special there.
Very special, very special. Someone just at lunch today was speaking to how in the Monterey Bay, they just spotted the first or the second blue whale that they've ever seen here
Wow.
coming
Wow.
across. And it was like, I mean, it was like 8 stories long, is what she said. And I'm like, and we were standing in front of a new building that actually is now 8 stories. In the first
Wow.
one in Santa Cruz, not, yeah, it's kind of changing the landscape. So
Hmm.
what she was doing was healing me. She was saying, imagine this, Donnie.
Wow.
And it changed me.
Wow.
I mean, I had a whole nother relationship with that building. And so we sat outside next to that building in the whales, the
Oh,
blue whale. And so it's wonderful to hear you speak of how we get our messages and what they really mean. And is that we, the little people and the whale, you know, are how we are diviningly the same to a certain degree, but what messages are we listening to, and how can we
mm.
be with them and hear them? So now it happened with the building. I'll just say because of the whale, just
Mm,
an hour ago,
wow.
was was I remembered that everything was alive. I got to remember that it's not just a building. And this is my practice anyway. I know everything's alive, no matter if we built them humanly or otherwise, naturally or whatever. And so now the energy of the building, I got to shift inside, but now I'm shifting with the energy of the building.
Mm,
And so
beautiful.
hopefully all of that nature, all of that connection and communication, even though it might seem far reaching between what you were speaking to and what I'm speaking to, it's all about connection
Yeah.
and relating. And
Mm,
so now I get to remember.
yeah. And coming back to the heart.
Yeah. Okay. So there it is. All, all coming back to the heart, which is our first language.
Yes.
I mean, energetically, in the womb, scientifically, whatever we call that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the folk at the Fairy Congress, like you experienced, whether or not we're all on the same spectrum of understanding, we bring a consciousness that co-creates a heart space of
Mhm.
learning and love and
Yeah,
evolution.
absolutely.
And so that's what I was just feeling into what you were saying. And I felt like the energy was real personal.
Wow.
And
Mm.
it made me want to talk about my experience at lunch.
Well, thank you for sharing. And as you're sharing, I'm seeing the painting behind you and the two little black swirls. I'm just seeing them as whales swimming toward your head.
You know, that's so beautiful too, because I think I might have noticed them as whales before, but I really see and feel them now. And inside those whales are cosmic bodies. They're
Mm.
full of stars,
Hmm. Yes.
which is so ancient and wonderful. And above them are redwoods and a
Mm.
puma.
Wow, beautiful.
And
Yeah.
so, but you can see the water.
Hmm.
So, I mean, how lovely of an observation.
Well, it's beautiful because one of the things that the whales have told me over the years is that they themselves are like stars orbiting Mother Earth's body. And they've also spoken about their connection to the trees because, you know, the bodies of the whales when they pass and they sink to the bottom of the ocean, they store a lot of carbon. And so they're actually doing for the ocean like the opposite of what the trees are doing for us above water, which is creating oxygen. And so they've told me before, they said that the trees are the whales of the land and the whales are the trees of the sea.
And I totally believe that. And interestingly enough, science is proving that. And
Hmm.
where I live, where the trees are still alive on the coast, right on the coast, they are creating the kelp forests.
Mm.
And in those kelp forests, you know, everything lives and thrives in the sea as far as the like pumas of the land. There's the, you know, um, fish and all the other creatures, including jellyfish and octopus. And, you know, there's no bottom to the Monterey Bay. They
Mm.
haven't found it yet.
Wow.
And some places, but there's a big crevice like the Grand Canyon, like right at the end of our bay. And the trees have to be there. And we have lots of whales migrating.
Mm.
And we're a whale bay. Anyway, I love that you said that because trees are essential for kelp growth. And without kelp growth, the planet is in real danger.
Mm.
You know, it's an environmental mandatory thing we need to co-create human life or any kind of life, like air and everything comes from the kelp forest.
Beautiful.
So I don't know if you knew that, but whales are talking to you.
Yeah, amazing,
Sure.
amazing interconnectivity between them all. And it's interesting. I was feeling into whether to speak on this or not, but I feel like it must have been for a reason that this morning I read an article about the Santa Monica Bay. And does Santa Monica Bay and Monterey Bay connect? No. Okay. So Santa Monica Bay and then another bay that connects to it, which is the oceans off of LA, right?
Right.
And they had just done a big survey of the bottom of the bay, and they have found what they call whale falls, which is when a whale dies and its carcass falls to the bottom of the ocean, and then it can stay there for a long time. And it becomes this resource that then feeds the ocean, it feeds all of the other beings. And they did a survey of these two bays and found a very high amount of whale falls, like a lot higher than they would have expected to find anywhere in the world. And so it's kind of making them rethink everything. And when I read that, I think the number was like 60 or 70 they found whales. And when I read that, I just felt like, this is a graveyard of the whales. And isn't it interesting that the graveyard of the whales would be right off of the coast of Los Angeles? And what does that mean for us? And so I'm still pondering that and in process, but I'll bring in a connecting dot that I'll just kind of throw into the pot for others to sit with in their own process, which is that one of the things that the whales told me recently, and this came from a grandfather gray whale, is that part of the whale's medicine and how they want to work with humanity is to assist us in alchemizing our greed through the process of feeling our grief. And so when we feel our grief, when we let our grief flow, when we let our tears fall, what we're doing is we're melting away that greed that has been built up from living inside of a consumerist culture. And that becomes food for the whales that then they can then take that food and help and aid us in this process of ancestralization, in this process of helping our ancestors become well again. And whale again.
I heard that. I heard that. I knew it was coming. That's so wonderful. So, well, I really want people to come to the Fairy Congress and to find out more about you and your wonderful offerings. I know that I want to salute you with some water to the whales and remind people where to find us. Tickets are still available at fairycongress.com. We are going to be on the land in Salem, Oregon, July 18th through the 22nd. Come join us and meet Aislinn at her immersion on Thursday, along with the Kontomble and the whales. And just come and connect. If you have any questions or want to know more, join us at fairycongress.com. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today, Aislinn.
Thank you, Dawn.
Many blessings to you and your whole family.
Well, thank you. Many blessings in return to you and all of your team.
Yes, and your team too. So we look forward to seeing you
Thank you.
on, yeah, in July.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you.